Welcome to the BJ Show. Let's rock and roll. Rock and roll. Come on, everybody. Let's lose control. Brad and John, they're the ones to follow. Yeah, ready for the ride. It's the BJ Show. BJ Show.
John, do you realize how much pressure that jingle puts on me every morning when I listen to it?
Because it's saying that we're the ones to follow? Is that, do you feel like you're Atlas pushing a ball up a hill?
Yeah, I mean, who wants to follow me? You know, if you want to follow somebody, follow John Combest. John Combest has got a good life. My life is so strange and so weird and so bizarre. Nobody wants to follow me. You know, when I'm on the highway...
I wouldn't say that's true at all, Brad.
When I'm on the highway and people behind me and they realize it's me, they get off at the next exit because they don't want to follow me. I mean, that's
usually because you're driving 40 miles per hour, and Adam Schnelting had to write a law about you.
Whatever happened to that law, by the way? Did that go anywhere? Do you know?
Yeah, it passed the Westplex legislature, Brad.
No, seriously. Do you know what happened to it? Did it become law?
You know, I didn't hear anything about it. That doesn't mean that it didn't pass or that it didn't fail. Surprisingly, in story number 3, the subject of story number 3 today from John's Top 3 did not mention the Adam Schnelting get your you-know-what in.
If you don't know what we're talking about, I sort of made fun of the fact that Adam Schnelting apparently doesn't like the fact that when he drives to Jefferson City on westbound 70 and then on southbound 54, and he's doing 150 miles an hour, he doesn't like the fact that there's people in front of him doing 120 miles an hour in the left lane. So he wants to make it to the point where they get arrested if they're in the left lane going less than 160 miles an hour. I'm exaggerating, of course, but the point I made was there already is a law in the state of Missouri. Matter of fact, when you drive I-70, there's signs from time to time to say, keep right except to pass, right? So it's already a state law, right?
The left lane is a passing lane.
Exactly.
Brad. It is not just set the old cruise control at 59 and take up space. It is a passing lane.
See, also, Adam needs to get a new car because if he had adaptive cruise control, he wouldn't have to worry about that. He just set it for 140, and when he came up against behind somebody doing 120, it would just slow his car down to like 120. And as soon as that person, you know, after he flashed his headlights at him for 40 seconds and threw beer cans out the window at him, then he would pull out the purpose and would pull in front of him, and his car would resume at 140. So I have to call. You know, Adam's a good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time. Do you know that?
Yeah, and now, true story, do you have any sort of imaginary beef with him or not?
I've never spoken with him in my life.
Okay, there you go. And Adam should keep it that way, because if he speaks with you once and then at some point he doesn't return a phone call about some radio sales pitch, then suddenly you'll have a beef with him. So, Adam, don't call Brad back.
I was invited to one of his fundraisers, but I understand he was...
Now, were you invited, or did they need some warm bodies there to say, hey, look, we have one-legged, one-eyed men that support us?
I was invited, but the problem was I heard that he had a sergeant at arms there, you know, like they have like in the Capitol, things like that.
Oh, yeah.
And guess who the sergeant at arms was?
It was Bill Eigel.
Yes, so I wouldn't have made it through
and you would have got thrown out.
I would have got tossed.
Shout out to Cindy Christofanelli. I don't know if she's given up on you, Brad, or if she still listens to the show, but shout out to Cindy Christofanelli.
Cindy has given up on me. She has. She's given up on me. Because of the fact that she's still embarrassed by the whole Bill Eigel incident, but that's a whole nother story. Okay, we've got this guy we bring in here, and what's his name again? Hold on a minute.
I'm Casey Kasem. We're on our way to the number one.
Man, this show's going downhill in a hurry. Okay, one more time.
I'm Casey Kasem.
The reason we bring him in is because he does a countdown. What does he do a countdown of? John Combest's top 3. Now, you may say, well, if he's got top 3, how many more does he have than that? He's got dozens on his website every single day. JohnCombest.com, JohnCombest.com. Go there. You'll see what version of the web are you using, John, for your JohnCombest.com? What version is that?
0.0.
By the way, Mike Otten, Mr. Info Dude, made a comment about that yesterday. He loves that. Anyway, so what we do is we start the show off with that guy who I just introduced, and he does things like...
In third place...
Probably the most interesting radio interview that we'll have all week going on, Brad, came down from Springfield yesterday. KSGF Radio, Mornings with Nick Reed. You will recall yesterday we talked about a fantastic interview that had been on the morning crew with Dan and Drew with State Representative Hawley Jones from Eureka. Hawley had dropped a number of gems in her conversation, and it was a banger. A lot of controversial things there. But guess what? You know, Darin's going to have to follow, this gentleman from Southwest Missouri is going to have to follow Hawley. And I think he topped her, Brad, pardon the expression. But State Representative Darin Chappell. We've talked about Darin before. He's a frequent guest of Nick Reed down there in Springfield. And boy, did he give us an unvarnished version of what happened in the legislature. Brad, this is a man after your own heart. You would like him. He's a bit of an older gentleman. He tends to sound a little bit cranky. You know, you ask him what time it is, he'll tell you how to build a watch. You ask him what he thinks of Royals and Chiefs Stadium, and he'll tell you that he's a big fan. He's been a fan of the Chiefs since Lynn Dawson. Everybody knows that he posts about the Chiefs. In fact, people come up to him and ask him, hey, what do you got on the Chiefs this week? So Darin likes to tell stories. So I'll give you just a few gems, Brad, that you and our listeners might appreciate. He told Nick that there's a 50-50 chance that the Kansas City Royals will be moving to Nashville. Brad, unless I'm mistaken, you mentioned the Nashville rumor before, didn't you?
Oh, yeah. Because of the fact that Nashville, if you know what's going on in Nashville, everybody and their brother is moving to Nashville. Nashville's becoming sort of like L.A. East, and they have the hockey team. They have the NFL team, but they don't have an NBA team or a baseball team. And that has been rumored for some time, that the Kansas City Royals, because the Royals have never really drawn very well. Even when they won the World Series, what was that, about 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, 10 years ago?
It was 2015 or 2016, I think. I guess the Cubs won in 16, so I think the Royals won in 15. And so I didn't mean to get us off track here, Brad, but Darin points out, Representative Chappell points out, that there's a 50-50 chance that the Royals are going to move anyway. And Darin is not a fan of dumping a whole bunch of money into the Chiefs and the Royals. You know, Kansas City is also hosting the World Cup in 2026, and most people are pretending to be soccer fans and pretending to care, but not Darin Chappell. He is, quote, so sick, unquote, of hearing about the World Cup. We've spent so much money on it as a state, Brad, that Darin says he doesn't ever want to hear about the World Cup again, which is unfortunate because it's next year and it's going to be all over the news. But Darin just talks about a lot of stuff, Brad. He talks about Proposition A, the sick leave bill, why it was necessary, how much we're burdening people. He pulls a Brad Hildebrand and he's like, if anybody starts a business, you're just expected to hand out jobs for $30,000 and people just show up and don't have to work and can call in sick. It's like a really good boomer rant from him. He's not too crazy about the gold and silver bill that just passed that will allow you to pay your taxes in gold and silver. He says mazel tov to that, which I thought was a unique dismissal of it. He talks about nuclear radiation, Brad. He calls Coldwater Creek Clear Creek. So he's not up on Coldwater Creek, but he got the idea right of the fact that there was a lot of pollution here during the Manhattan Project and everything going on there. He talks about putting the head of the Department of Economic Development in her place when it comes to the Royal Stadium. Her name's Michelle Hataway. He talks about putting her in her place, asking her questions she can't answer. He talks about putting State Senator Maggie Nurrenbern from the other side of the state, making her so mad that they had to take a break in conference committee and people had to calm her down. Darin makes a lot of really good points. He's one of those guys that'll tell you, and I told him, and I told her. So Darin recaps all the times that he put these people in their place. And then he touches on the fact that, you know, there was a big controversy about a budget bill, House Bill 19, and what really happened behind the scenes there. And then I guess the takeaway quote, Brad, to juxtapose it with Hawley Jones yesterday. Hawley Jones, when she was on the morning crew with Dan and Drew, said that there are only 10 conservatives in the Missouri House. Darin Chappell says there are, on a good day, 30. So according to Darin Chappell, there's 3 times as many conservatives in the House as Hawley Jones thinks. So I guess it depends on your definition of a conservative. But anyway, whether it's Hawley Jones who's known to drop a gem or two, or whether it's Darin Chappell, you never want to miss a Darin Chappell interview. And you can find it today with every available and appropriate timestamp up on my website, Brad.
He sounds like my kind of guy, John.
He does, Brad. And, every time I listen to him, especially when he goes off on a tangent that's not really related to the main question, I think Brad would love this guy. He did everything short of talking about the P-51 Mustang.
John, I've never done that before. And by the way, do you know how how many Little Debbies they've sold so far this year?
Did you know one time I took a Mercedes for a test drive and I blew the engine out? And they started the Brad Hildebrand roll.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we were ready for number 2.
We sure are.
Up a notch to number 2.
Speaking of entertaining stunts around the state, Brad, Boone County Democrats pulled a stunt of their own on Tuesday. They invited a bunch of Republicans to their Democrat event. They invited Josh Hawley. They invited Eric Schmitt. They also invited Bob Onder and Congressman Mark Alford. Onder and Alford both represent part of that Boone County area that Republicans weren't going to show up. So they put some empty chairs there, Brad. And not only did they have empty chairs, they made half of a body, like an upper body cardboard cutout. And then they put pictures of all 4 men on there. And at various points in the forum, they looked at those cardboard cutouts and they told those cardboard cutouts what. Now, forget the fact that, Josh Hawley is in St. Louis looking at tornado damage, and forget the fact that our other members of the congressional delegation are out doing serious work. But no matter, the Democrats wanted to talk about how terrible Doge is. They had a long litany of complaints, how AI is threatening the workplace. They had a guy named Kenneth Freeman, the Reverend Kenneth Freeman went up there and he was talking about all the bad things that Trump was doing right in the face of the cardboard cutouts. So I love this stuff, Brad. It's not serious. Like it's nothing, based on policy, or it's not anything based on anything that's actually going to convince Hawley, Schmitt, Alford, Onder to change their votes. But it's a good way to rally the troops. You can see the Columbia Daily Tribune has a piece up. They have a big crowd shot, and you can see there's a bunch of geriatrics that look like they're right about to nod off in the room. Because it's a Democrat event, you have various fat people. You have a smattering of minorities. But it's a good thing to rally your troops, and it's always kind of funny. And who doesn't laugh at a cardboard cutout? Even if it's only half a body and they didn't put much effort into it other than slapping a photo on it. Who doesn't want to poke fun at like a Josh Hawley cardboard cutout? You see what I mean?
Did they have an eye patch on Josh? Did he have that 3-cornered hat on, and did he have his pirate shoes on and his skinny jeans?
Yeah, he did, and he had an extra button undone on his shirt. He pulled that gimmick on when he was doing the tour damage. Now, I don't know. Sometimes there's a lot of men's shirts now are made so that you unbutton the top 2. So I can't push on Hawley too hard, pardon the expression there. But he likes to do like the extra button done on thing. It shows that he's just a working man. He's not stiff. He's not an Ivy League guy.
Yeah, but it also shows that he gets his chest waxed and he doesn't have any hair there. So what does that show you as well, too?
Ooh, Brad, what did you see him in line at the esthetician's place or what?
I do. One of my friends is his esthetician. And by the way, what's interesting is when Josh, when in his cardboard cutout, they had one letter of the alphabet all over his body. It was sort of interesting.
They had one letter that was missing, you said?
No, they had one letter of on his cardboard cutout. They had one letter that was all over his body.
Oh, was it the letter R?
It was. R.
It was the letter R.
Okay. We're ready for number 1.
Hey,
sorry.
you know why Josh was actually late to that forum, Brad?
Why is that?
He got stuck out at sea. That was a child's Halloween joke.
I thought you were going to say he was...
You know what is going to be repurposed? A story from number 1, though, Brad.
I thought you were going to say he was on the Mexican sailing boat and they were bringing him to D.C. down the East Coast. No, that wasn't it? Okay.
No, that's not him. He was actually in a Mexican boat and they were going to crash into a bridge.
The number 1.
Brought to us, Brad, by your favorite outlet, St. Louis Public Radio. A gentleman named Chad Davis is on the case. FEMA begins St. Louis survey as residents reel from tornado. The quote from a resident, Everything's been ripped away. Now, we've talked, Brad, about the fact that it took a few days for FEMA to get people here. You and I disagreed on it. You thought that FEMA should have people here right away. I said that it's government and they're not going to move that quickly, and they have protocols that they have to follow. But FEMA started assessing damage yesterday. They came here. There were 4 teams that were dispatched. 3 of the teams went throughout St. Louis City, and 1 was dispatched throughout St. Louis County. And each team had members of FEMA, the Small Business Administration, the City Emergency Management Agency, and the State Emergency Management Agency. And also of note here, Brad, Kehoe has said that he will ask President Trump for a major disaster declaration for federal funding following the review. So once his team is able to put some sort of an estimate together along with the feds and along with other agencies, city agencies, Kehoe will make a major disaster declaration and spell out exactly how much money he needs. So finally, Brad, FEMA has more people here. And according to a transcript that I read this morning from the Mark Cox morning show yesterday, Cox was going through some information he had from FEMA. And apparently there are protocols for a certain number of days before FEMA can make some sort of request or declaration or get some sort of help. So there is some sort of hurdle, probably not surprising, that keeps government from moving more quickly in these situations. So that's story number 1, Brad. FEMA is finally here on the ground assessing things.
Now, let's say for example, the FEMA crew, they are here in St. Louis, and they go to a area restaurant and they order, and the waiter says, now, I'll put your order in, but it has to be approved by the head chef, and then it has to be approved by the owner of the restaurant, and we have to make sure that everything is being complied with. We should have your dinner for you by Friday. What do you think the FEMA people would say?
You do a great job on this show, Brad, pointing out the fact that government rarely moves at the speed of business.
Right. They would go, what do you mean dinner's not going to be here till Friday? It's Wednesday. Yes, but we have a protocol we have to follow. See, that's the problem with government.
It certainly is. I mean, there's certainly a lot of red tape, and these are the type of things that ostensibly DOJ would be looking at, maybe looking at how to move government more quickly in times of crisis.
Okay, we have to take a break. In B Block, I want to bring up the fact that sometimes I know you think I'm a raving lunatic and I say weird stuff. Do you know who Sally Quinn is by any chance?
No, is she related to Sally Jesse Raphael?
No, and she's not related to Kay Quinn. Okay, Sally Quinn, if you followed national news, she's a very famous, some people will say infamous news person. And for once in my life, well, I shouldn't say for once, but I say things all the time and people go, I can't believe you said that. That's so stupid and ridiculous. How many times did I talk about this situation? And Sally Quinn has essentially come on board with me, Brad Hildebrand. How's that, John?
I'm not going to look it up over break because I want you to spring it on me in B Block, Brad.
I will do that. Okay.